Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Nick Lopez. He is the CEO of Lime Painting, a franchise company that provides luxury painting, coatings, and surface restoration services to residential and commercial custom properties. Made the Inc. 5000 list. Congratulations. And you've just been building this really exciting company. So, Nick, welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So you've been building this exciting company, making some real progress. I would love to hear how you got started. Can you take us through a little bit of your journey?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that um, you know, you can hit crossroads and eventually get where you're going and not even know where you're going, but still get there, right? And for me, that most certainly happened with wrestling and it turning into a paint company. Ultimately, it was a means for paying for college, and that either route was the solution for paying for college, and I ended up falling in love with, and it became my career. The latter, the paint business. But yeah, it was pretty much a gym rat growing up, and in high school, I was looking at different universities, and my sophomore year, I had seen that there was a wrestler at Michigan State, and he was a freshman that had just won the NCAA title, and so I figured, by the time he's a senior, I'll be a freshman at Michigan State, and I can learn from him and take over, and wrestling would ultimately pay my way through college. And so I did that. I went to Michigan State, thinking I was accepted, and I wrestled there my freshman year, and I received a tuition bill for about $2,200, and it was just so much money at the time, and so a scholarship was a couple years out, and I started a paint company called Spartan College Painters, and I looked at the bigger the house, the more bills it helped me pay. And little did I know it was, creating a niche and
Hmm.
really exposing me to a niche that was pretty underserved. And it's a lot, painting is very fragmented, the industry. And so these clients were what I looked at as premium clients. They are willing to pay more to get more. They want quality. And they paid more for the luxury home. They paid more for the luxury vehicle in the driveway. They paid more for the luxury meal the past weekend. And here they are in contracting, trying to find a similar way to purchase. And it's just so fragmented. And frankly, in painting, the barriers to entry are so non-existent that anyone can really be a painter. Even me at 18 with 0 years experience, and so um, clients are exposed to all of that, and so I started looking into national companies doing that. The high end focus. Once I started getting my business degree and learning about competitive advantage, the opportunities started becoming clearer. And after looking into companies, there weren't any nationally that were focused on the high end clients I was working for and bringing so much value to just for showing up
Hmm.
and answering my phone and doing a good job. Those were some baselines that I could compete with. So I was happy to know that that was my expectation. Right, it was easy enough for me. I'm kidding, of course, but not really, I guess. And so I started learning about positioning in marketing. Some of my lecture classes where if you're high price, high quality, that's really your lane. That's where you stay. You build the model. Everything about the business is in that sector. And I got serious about that once it was clear that there was an opportunity nationally. And I never seen myself as a painter. I never thought I would own a paint company my whole career. And in fact, in college, I was looking into a master's program in Southwest Florida. I was going to do commercial real estate development, and that was like the appealing job title that and frankly, it was just something that I loved and wanted to do. But this painting business, clients kept thanking me and encouraging me, and and I'm also falling in love with the transformations of these luxury homes. And I don't know if you've ever done in-home sales. I never had, and so I just really fell in love with that whole process of, it's just something about being in somebody's home, and they're not as guarded, and it's very personal, and it's very relationally driven, and that whole process of serving while building that relationship.
Hmm.
Really enjoyed it. And so I was falling in love with the business. The national opportunity became clearer and clearer. Um, and, so I got serious about it and spent the remainder of my time in college really focused on it, and then moved back home to Denver in 2013 and launched Lime Painting. So 2023 will be in our 10-year anniversary, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
But
Congratulations.
but I had done the paint business. I started in 2008, 2009. I did for 5 years in college, and um, so yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty much how I got started.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It's funny um how entrepreneurs, they don't, it's not like you're stumbling onto things, but in going through your life and taking advantage of opportunities and seeing the need, you're not stumbling on these opportunities, but you are creating opportunities. That's what sounds like happened with you.
Yeah, stumbling, creating, it's however you want to position it. It's either or, two and of the same. I think it's two sides of the same coin, really. I think that's so much of just execution and business in general, is strategically planning it, but also stumbling on it. And it's kind of that magic between the two, that if you can't deal with the stumbling, then you're probably not going to execute for that long. Because I think in anything, if you're breaking ceilings, if you're a high performer, or if you're an entrepreneur and you're in the gray, you're doing things you've never done, or you're pioneering, or you're trying to make the business better, there's going to be areas where you need to break ceilings. Or what, you're just staying stagnant, you're plateauing, you're doing what's comfortable, you're doing the norm, right? So I think stumbling is so important to get good at stumbling.
Hmm. Hmm. That's a good point. Now, your experience with wrestling, I can imagine, would have an impact on your ability to handle those things. Do you see those connections? Have you seen how your experience in competitive wrestling really made a difference for you in business?
Yeah, and now my two boys are wrestling. They just did their first tournament this past yesterday, actually. They're 7-5, and it's so neat the lessons that you learn in wrestling, and losing and winning, and how you win and how you lose. Um, I had one boy. He went out his first match yesterday, and he totally dominated, and everyone watching was like, "Wow!" and cheering him. And then he gets to the sideline, and he's like bragging about it, and he's like, "That was so easy." And I was just like, "Oh my goodness! Like, that is not how you win, there, buddy." So I called him over, and I'm like, "Nico, look, buddy, it's one match. You got to stay focused." And then he's making buddies with other wrestlers, and then he's making buddies with the kid he's going to be wrestling next. He's really good, and he just lost his edge.
Ah,
And then on the other hand, the other boy, he went out and he was so excited. He was so happy to be wrestling for the first time. We've been training for so long. He was overly excited. He lost, and he totally could have beat the kid. Thankfully, he had an opportunity to wrestle him again. He wrestled him 3 times. He won the second and third time, and he told me after he won his second and third, he told me, he said, "Hey, Dad, your advice really helped me." And what I told him was, "Jay, you were so excited, buddy, you forgot to win."
oh,
And
I love that. You were so excited you forgot to win. That's so good. Yeah, that's good. And it helped him, huh? Did it just remind him that that's what he needed to be doing, or what, how did it help him, do you think?
yeah, he was there to compete, and he was there to impart his will on another, and the other kid. They were competing, it's competition. And so it was just that little mental switch. As
Yeah.
simple as that is, he's 5, so he needed that. And I gave him that direction. I said, "Hey, the next time you wrestle him, pin him, like, impart your will, like, finish the job. You're totally capable, amongst all the encouragement that I gave him. And he did just that. He got to wrestle that same kid 3 times. It was just him and another kid. The other kid is great. Good little guy, both competitive. They both wanted it. It was the cutest thing. You should have seen it. And that was how his day went. Whereas on the other hand, is where he flipped the script and you know lost and then won, and there was only 2 kids competing in that weight class, and so he ended up winning first place. His brother went out, dominated the first time, lost the second match by a point, and the kid that he wrestled was someone he befriended, and he lost his edge. He lost by a point. And in the match, he was totally the opposite. He was much more docile than the first time. The first time he went out there, he was the aggressor. He was nervous. He was scared. He had the edge, and he was focused. And so, he ended up taking second place. His brother took first, and we left, and they both had lessons. And, I think throughout a career of competing, you learn all those lessons. And, I befriended kids that were really good. And when I did that, I lost my edge and I lost the match. And so I was able to share that with him. And yeah, I think developing skills like work ethic, focus, and having fun throughout the journey of working for a goal, I think that translates to business all day long. And I coach my boys. I tell them that we do this little powwow together. We each put our hand in. One boy says, work hard. The next one says, focus. And I say, have fun. And we kind of break. And, I think that those are lessons that are built over the journey of competing and training and building friends in the locker room and that camaraderie. You're going through that together. And that's very much like business, right? You're working hard. You need to be focused. You need to have fun still, have balance. And you're working toward goals, and you're doing it with people alongside you that are your teammates. And yeah, athletics, competing, sport, it 100% translates to business. And that's why I love what I do, because at my core, I love doing all of those things. I mean, you can catch me around a poker table or, a game of pool or whatever it is. If there's a way to compete and someone's going to win and lose, I'm all about it. I just love competing. And, even just picking a sports team and cheering for them. And there's just something about that it's just the way that I'm wired. And so business is very similar. And, you're constantly winning and losing. You're constantly learning lessons. You're constantly hitting crossroads and navigating the answers and the comfort zones that you have, whether you're competing as an athlete or you're within, some context as an entrepreneur.
Hmm. Have you experienced any particular kind of like really difficult moments in business since you've been in business the last 10 years? I mean, I would imagine that there have been a few struggles along the way that you had to overcome. Would you mind sharing one of them with us?
Sure. I think that, I can say so many situations, I can share so many situations where I had an unhappy customer, unhappy client. I think anyone can relate to that, whether you're an employee, an employer, whatever industry you're in, you're going to have unhappy customers. And I think that there is a mirror in unhappy customers. Unhappy customers share with you where you're not measuring up, where the value is not there, where the gaps are. And the longer you resist that feedback, the longer you persist in that dilemma there. And so, I think the lesson in that is humility.
Mm.
And I'm always talking about it, whether it's with employees or with franchise owners or even myself. I think the best business owners, the best performers are folks that are humble. And, if you can separate yourself from the situation, and you can create it, situations as learning opportunities, or even just have an open ear, do just that, just listen and not really be invested in it emotionally. Sure, you may process some emotions, but if you can approach really all aspects of your day, or in this example, customer feedback or unsatisfied customer, um, in a humble way, a humble posture, just think that you get to solutions much faster and you level up much faster. Um, and that's what we're all trying to do, right? We're trying to solve problems and get better. And so, I think having a humble heart, a humble approach, helps with doing all of those things.
Hmm. Yeah. In one of our programs, we had a conversation just recently, like last week, about how being self aware, like actually paying attention to where we really are and being honest about that, is one of the hardest things for people to do internally, personally, but then as a team, as a company. I mean, just to be honest. So to have that, like you said, that mirror of that customer feedback, what a great opportunity to see those things. But also it's like you said, it's humbling, but it's just real, it's true. If you can take those moments and turn them into, okay, so that what do we need to do to tweak it, to get to where we want to go, because you can't get to where you want to go if you don't know where you are. Right? It just sounds like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. And generally, you learn the most from other people's feedback.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that is customer feedback. If you're trying to bring value to the market, and we're talking business, you're bringing value to the market, you want to earn more revenue, give more value. You want to have less customer complaints, give more value, right? You want to grow your business, give more value. Find a way to give more value faster, more efficiently, with less bottlenecks. It's absolutely all about giving value, and you need feedback, and there's iterations, and there's betas and iterations and more revisions. And if you're not improving, tweaking, being agile, then clearly you're not closing gaps and doing just that. Granted, you need to know what you do well and not change what is done well, and understand the difference. But speaking in terms of feedback and being humble, it's a big part of the equation of breaking ceilings, leveling up, and giving more value, generating more revenue, building brand equity.
Mm-hmm.
Most times that's done in feedback, employee feedback, customer feedback, peer feedback.
Yeah. You know, it just sounds like what you're saying is something along the lines of that when you are able to be humble, you can be more competitive, which is such an interesting, like, you don't usually put those things, two things together, the humility and competitiveness, but yet it seems like that's what you're like, that might be part of your edge.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. So, can you tell us a little bit more about what lime painting does? Like, what's your business model?
Mm-hmm. Well, we are a luxury paint company. We focus on residential, and commercial. So when it comes to residential, that's going to be different depending on the market. So we are a national company. So a place like Boise, Idaho, we would look at luxury as $500,000 plus. A place like Denver, where we're headquartered, we'd look at $1 million plus. Somewhere like LA, we'd look at $2 million plus. So we're taking that top third of a market value and we index it for that market. And that's how we evaluate the residential. Commercial, it's really anything that is custom, high-end restaurants, country clubs, shopping centers. It's still that luxury focused quality product. We work with artisans only, so high grade labor and very skilled labor, I should say. And so we do interior, exterior, residential, commercial. We're in that luxury focus. Because we are luxury focused, we do more than paint. And the reason why we do more than paint is a type of coating. It's one of many different coatings. And, paint goes on paintable surfaces, clearly. But you also have metal surfaces, masonry surfaces, so many different substrate surfaces that make up luxury estates. And they all turn over. They're all exposed to the sun and water. And so much like painted surfaces, paint is like a glove. It goes on, it protects the surface. Aesthetically, it makes it look good. Sure. I mean, that's what most of us care about, right? But it really is protecting that surface that it's applied to. And so the other surfaces that are not painted, they still turn over, they still deteriorate, and they eventually don't look good anymore because of all the reasons that the paintable surfaces don't. And so we take the approach of helping our clients who are homeowners or folks that manage the properties that are owned by those high-end homeowners, and we educate and help them understand what I just shared with you, and we consult them on all the solutions for restoring each surface and the appropriate coatings, how to prepare them, how to apply them. As I mentioned earlier, we only work with artisans, so our laborers our craftsmen are very talented. They're able to apply all those coatings, and so we don't really want to just apply a coating down. And if that surface doesn't have good integrity, we may need to do carpentry work. We may need to do stucco restoration, masonry restoration before we apply any coating. So we do painting, coatings, and surface restoration.
And how does your franchising work?
So franchising, you basically join our franchise system, meaning that you license the brand, the systems, the playbook, and you have access to our training, our support, our technology, our marketing, everything that goes into running a lime painting business, right? You purchase the right to the brand, the playbook, and then ongoing basis, you pay a royalty in exchange for all those things. So we currently have just under 80 total locations. In August of 2020, we had 7. And so we've done a lot of growth here over the past couple of years coming out of the pandemic. And so that's pretty much how the franchise works.
Okay, so for those of you who aren't watching on video, I'm seeing what LIME stands for. Can you tell us what LIME stands for, and like where did these words come from? How did you come up with this name?
Sure. So LIME stands for love, integrity, mission, and excellence. These are our core values, and really it's just what we stand for, right? Lime, the name comes from the marketing, the color. I went to Michigan State. It's green. Lime is the most appealing green. So we always joke you can see our job sites in space. And that was something that I had observed in college. We didn't get as much credit for all the projects we had worked on. We had a lot of clients that were happy and referred us. And so over the years when I was in school, I was thinking, oh my gosh, towards the end of me leaving, I wish we had more credit for all the homes we've done. Even if it was just a color, like the purple guys come in and they paint and they're in here every year. And so green and then lime green. And so it started from a marketing standpoint. There's no better sales tool than a job site. And I was meeting with a client, again, one of these humble feedback moments. This client, very successful, ran a national moving company, and he told me, hey Nick, I know you're so values driven. That's something that really sets you guys apart. I enjoy that as a customer, but I don't think people know that. And so I think you should do something more intentional about your values. He's like, what we did with our moving company is we just put our values on our shirts, so that way our movers, our clients, everybody knew what we stood for. And I took his advice, and that's when Lime became love, integrity, mission, and excellence. And it's on all of our T-shirts and website and marketing collateral.
Hmm.
It's become a huge vetting tool, but more so a recruiting tool. It's something that is talked about in recruiting conversations, whether it's new franchise partners or employees. It's something that has definitely become pretty infectious and is or very organic.
Yeah, those are great. Those are I love the love. You don't see love as a value very often, but I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can I ask you some questions about leadership?
Let's do it.
Okay, we're doing this series of CEOs asking these similar questions. What has been one of the biggest factors in your company's success?
I started my career in 2008, 2009, right? 18, 19, 18 years old. I had 0 years experience. It was the suburbs of Detroit. At the time, Detroit was very economically depressed. Um, and it was very much a recession, and it was at the housing market. And here I was starting a, a company in the housing industry. I can't tell you how many foreclosure signs I had seen. They were more
Wow.
common than real estate
Yeah.
signs
Yeah.
back when I started. It was pretty creepy, but I didn't have enough life experience for that to even cross my mind. And frankly, even if I did, I still don't even know if it would have mattered, because this is the point that I'm making. You fast forward to 2020, and there's a pandemic, and we had done so much work to scale in 2020. We started line painting in 2013, and um, I joined an association in 2016 and traveled around the country for 2 years learning about franchising. And then we onboarded our first owner in 2018, and then the next few in 2019. And it's really been methodical and we took our time with launching and scaling Lime. And 2020 was the year to scale. And of course, the pandemic hit. So I 100% seen that as an opportunity. And I was very confident about the opportunity from that context, because I had personally started my career in 2008, and I knew that the power of execution was really all that mattered, and controlling what I could control is really all that mattered. So I think, to be direct, the biggest factor is executing,
Hmm.
um, and not letting fear or anything else hinder the ability to execute. Is I've always loved Nike, being an athlete, and I've always loved the slogan "Just do it," and that's just something that's so powerful, especially from an entrepreneur standpoint. Just showing up, it's the start, but it's one of the hardest things to do. And just getting started is, just get started or just do it. Most folks don't have that ability, unfortunately.
Hmm.
So, not just starting, but and not just doing it, but doing it over a long period of time without letting naysayers or the marketplace or the economy or social
Hmm.
media or the news interfere with the ability to execute. And um, yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
probably it.
that's good. This is kind of a different direction, but what is one of the questions that you or your company likes to ask when hiring?
Yeah, I'd say, are you ready to change your life?
Oh, wow.
Are you ready to do something you've never done before?
Hmm.
Okay, you have all the skills, all the talent that we're looking for, but are you ready to join a high performance culture? Because you're going to be held accountable, you're going to be coached, you're going to be pushed, and your peers are going to have that same standard.
Yeah.
The standard at Lime is high performance. This is a high performance culture. And you may not be in the right season of life for that. And so I can't make that decision for you. You have to make that decision. If you make that decision, just know it's not going to be easy.
You're going to challenge people. That's cool. All right, what's the number one challenge that you are personally facing as a CEO looking into 2023? We know that you're not too afraid of recession, which we've been hearing is what's probably coming or is here or whatever, depending on who you ask. What are your thoughts looking into 2023?
I think the biggest opportunity, the biggest challenge is doing what I just shared at scale, right? So we are from coast to coast. We're a company that's located coast to coast. And it's beyond myself. It's beyond my headquarters or my corporate locations. But transferring that same confidence to just execute, just do it in a recession,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, we did that in 2020. We had owners on board, and every one of them were very successful in 2020. And one of the things that we appreciated and we were very aware of during that time was that we had each other and that we were a community going through it together, focused together, disciplined together, protecting our headspace together, executing together, all the things I mentioned. But we were aware of the fact that that is a secret weapon of a franchise system, a franchise family, is that you can lean in moments of adversity or moments of opportunity. The recession means that we're going to have competitors that stop executing, that sit on the sidelines. We're going to have competitors that never enter the marketplace because the naysayers or the news or the recession. And so if we continue executing through it versus the opposite, slowing down or being paralyzed by whatever, we're going to be better for it. So, yeah, I'd say replicating what we did in 2020 in the pandemic in 2023, if there's a recession. So, just creating that culture of unity and confidence.
I've noticed that CEOs of mid-sized companies are not nearly as afraid of recession as bigger companies. Building organizational infrastructure to sustain high growth can be a challenge. What obstacles have you faced in that process, or what has your company done well?
I would say know what you do well. Like, what are your leading indicators? What are those handful of simple things that really matter in the business? And organize the week based on majors and minors so that you can navigate when to do those things, how to protect time for executing on those things, and then measure them. So it has to be data driven. So if up front you build the system with that in mind, that's the core. So you can catch up on anything else. As long as you're executing on those leading indicators, the value will be given, the revenue will be generated, and that's what's most important, right? Cash is king. So if you're generating revenue, little problems stay little. If you're not generating revenue, little problems become big problems. So, I think if you're going to start anywhere, it's design the business model so that you can measure and you totally simplify and identify what those indicators are, and then create training and accountability around them and learn how to coach around them, inspire, create vision around them. And that's the key. That's at the core. And then everything else comes from that, because that's what drives revenue, and revenue creates resources, which allows for everything else.
Just taking that question about revenue one step further, then what advice do you have for companies that are trying to double their revenue at this point?
This is going to sound so simple, but it's goal setting. If you're intentional day in, day out about goal setting, I mean, just ask yourself, when's the last time I set goals? When's the last time that I followed up on those goals? When's the last time I did that at scale with others? With others. Setting is so powerful. It's so simple, but it's yet so hard to be accountable to. But if you can create purpose, like life transforming purpose, goals complement that purpose. And if you create a vision that's big enough where purpose ties in, um, goals are that practical way of reinforcing the vision, the purpose. Simon Sinek talks about why so much. I'm pretty much talking around why, but yeah, I mean, it comes down to a deeper why, um, a bigger vision that is inspiring and pulls out your passion and ultimately gets you to execute at a higher level, aka goals.
All right. So, Nick, where can people find information about lime painting? And I don't know if you're looking for more franchise owners. Where can people find information about you?
Sure. Well, you can find myself more about Lime, our franchise opportunity at limepainting.com. You can also check out our podcast show called the Level Up with Nick Lopez show. You can find that on the podcast tab on the website. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Nick Lopez, and you can always email me. So it's Nick, Nick, at limepainting.com.
Okay, I've got one more question for you. What advice do you have for someone who wants to be a voice of influence? This is the Voice of Influence podcast. So, somebody who wants to have an impact and be a voice of influence, what advice do you have for them?
Business is all about people.
Yeah.
The customers that you serve, the employees that you lead, and in this case, the franchise owners that I lead. And if you're not for them, if you're not serving them, if your purpose is not their purpose, um, it's going to be hard to genuinely create real value that uh, creates real influence. So, yeah, I would say just remember that business is all about people, and um, it's if you focus on the people, the profits will come, and you can have way more impact, create way more influence that truly makes a difference if you're focused on the people that you're serving and you remember that you're serving them, whether it's employees, customers, franchise owners. So there's something powerful about being genuine and connecting with people and making it about more than just generating profit.
Thank you so much, Nick, for being a voice of influence for our listeners today and just for the impact that you're having with lime painting. I'm excited for you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.